Well, today I'm delighted to be talking to Eddie, who's going to be sharing some of his own experiences with us at Truth Proof. And I'm not going to go into some kind of laboured monologue about this man's achievements or what he does. I just leave it to Eddie to share these accounts. So, Eddie, welcome to Truth Proof.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And do you want to just start at the beginning then, where these things of high strangeness began for you, Eddie, please?
Well, professionally speaking, they started happening in 2009 when I was a border patrol agent in the New Mexico, Arizona area, and I the first major thing that happened to me, you have to go through a training program. So you go through academy and you get out and you're normally partnered up with people and you're doing this training. And we had in our area, our as we called it, our area of operations or AOR, it was vast. It was over 3,000 square miles that we covered, and we would have what's called we called it an MSS truck or mobile surveillance unit, and it's infrared and it's night vision. And
Right.
these trucks were these old, not old, they had old military equipment, and the equipment was placed on like an F-250, a Ford F-250, and it would have like a boom and the cameras going up and down and stuff like that. Well, I whenever you first start, you kind of go in a group and you're kind of a group of trainees. Well, I had been taken off the program early. I'd been competent. I tested out, so I was kind of on my own really really soon. So I was brand new at the academy, but I was already on my own. But
Right.
they would give you kind of the rookie, you know, the rookie stuff where you're doing a lot of the paperwork at the office, or if you went out to the field, you're by yourself, by the way, you would be what's called the MSS runner. So if the surveillance unit spotted and spotted something in the Animas Valley where they were set up at, they spotted people kind of going through, you would be the one that would respond. So I'm there, right? Of course, I'm kind of staying with this guy. He's also pretty new, and for the life of me, I can't even remember who he was. Again, I was new, and it's there's a lot of people involved, right? So
Yeah.
I'm barely meeting some of these people for the first time, and we're working the swing shift, so it was 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. That was our shift. So it's probably about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Actually, it's probably about 9 or 10 because it was dark,
Okay.
and the operator of the truck calls me over. And if you got any activity, when I was in, they changed it now after this, which is kind of strange, but we'll kind of get to that. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but it used to have. It wasn't a VCR tape. It was where you know what a VHS tape is,
Yes,
but it's
I do.
it's
Yeah.
like the smaller ones. You know what I'm talking about? Like the film crews use them, like the smaller. So it looked like a different VHS tape, and he calls me over, and Animas Peak is on the valley and it's on the opposite side. So it's we're facing we're facing east. So we're looking at Adams Peak. We're looking at the west side of Adams Peak. And he goes, "Hey, come over here." And I walk over there and I'm parked in the truck next to his unit.
Yeah.
And I go, "Hey, what's going on?" And he opens up the truck, and those trucks, they had been pretty much gutted so that they had swivel seats, and you're sitting in the truck facing backwards where the monitors are. So if you have to walk in through the back door to get into the truck, and then it has a swivel seat and
Yeah.
everything's set up backwards on this truck, okay? And you can control the cameras and all that other stuff. And he goes, "Do you have your NVGs, which stands for night vision goggles?" And of course, me being a trainee, I mean, I would go to the armory. I had everything, right? I had what's called and I was actually one of the first people that checked it out. It was called we called them TAM units, and it stood for thermo. I don't remember what the A was for. Monoculars. So it's like a giant scope, and it was for heat, right? It's for heat
Yeah.
signatures. This thermal scope, which I think you probably have taken them up there on the cliffs.
Yeah.
So I have the TAM. I have my NVGs, and it's like the big double ones, and the NVGs that we use, they haven't really changed much from the Vietnam era.
So they're looking at
Uh,
the in the like fluorescent green.
yes, so they're green, right? They're green. And he goes, "Hey, come here, take a look at this." And I go, "Okay." Now I walk over and he looks at the screen and he he points at it and he goes, "What's that on Animas Peak?" And I look at it and it's this gigantic, just a light source, right? Because he's looking at it with also NVGs, but or I'm sorry, with infrared and with night vision. You could switch over to the
Yeah.
screens. I think there was like 3 or 4 screens on there. And then you just have the regular camera, right? That you could switch on. We call it day mode, night mode,
Yeah.
obviously. And I remember so clearly seeing this gigantic ball of light, and it would come down. You know what it reminded me of when I first saw it? And I know this is silly, but this is I'm a very image, just trying to make sense of what I saw. But it reminded me of the New Year's balls,
Yeah. Yeah.
the New Year's, New Year's Eve balls, and then it's like doing the countdown. It's always this gigantic. It looked like that, and you could see it on the camera, and and the night vision on the MSS truck was black and white versus mine, my portable ones, right? That my goggles, they're green. It's like a green
Yeah.
hue. So I go, I don't know. And I remember I just kind of peeked over the side of the truck and I could see the peak where he's looking at. So I could look at the screen and then I could look at the mountain and it's backlit up enough where you could see something and there's nothing there. And he goes, "Did you did you do you have your NVGs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got them." And he's like, "Well, can you see if you could see that? Because I don't know what that is." So he starts switching the different camera modes. He's clicking. Can't Of course it's dark, right? You can't see it.
Mm.
And he clicks it to thermal, and there's something there, but it's not coming off as it being. I can't remember if it was white hot or black hot,
Yeah.
but it's opposite where you would think that it would be hot, but it was showing up that it was really cold in this
I
cold
see.
spot. So I go to my truck, I get my NVGs, and I get the TAM. And actually, I didn't use the TAM because I had the TAM with me, but I couldn't turn it on at the time. But so I'm just using my NVGs. So I get my NVGs, and I'm looking again, and we would do this thing where you could take binoculars at night, and the way the binoculars work, it's almost like it gives you almost this crazy 20/20 at night. It's So I kind of look at it too because it was just so weird. I mean, the ball was so huge, and I'm talking about it was probably the size of like an A-star helicopter.
Right. Okay.
So we call them A-stars. I don't know if you guys, if they're different over there, but it's like the small two-seater, maybe 4 people helicopter. It's pretty small. It's
Still
mainly for,
substantial to be there, though, isn't it? He's just hanging.
yeah. So it's just there, right? It's just doing this, but it would kind of go up and down. I then get my NVGs, and when I put them on, I mean, this thing was so bright in my NVGs on my personal ones.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the mountaintop and I can see it, and what it's doing is the curvature of the mountain, right? The outline that you're looking at it. And I've been up there, and I sent you some photos, and you can kind of see, where kind of how it is. There's really no flat spots. It's really kind of sloping, and it's it almost looked like it was looking for something. Like it was going over the ground and following the contour of the mountain that we could see.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
see.
following the contour, and then it would stop, and then it would go whoop, and it would zip like, but you could see it like zipping, and then it would go up in the air probably 30. Oh, I'm getting the chills talking about it. uh it was
It,
so I'm sorry. So it just,
you're back in the moment
it just
there, Eddie, aren't you?
it was so it was so surreal.
Yeah.
It was just looking, and I so at the time we had problems with drug smugglers bringing contraband stuff across. They would use like the, oh my gosh, like the gyrocopters, and
Mm.
they would use like the hang gliders with the, or like in paraglide. They didn't do paragliding. Some of them did, but not in our area. But they would use like the hang gliders with the little. So at first, I'm thinking, oh, is it that? But and then again, I'm like, no, no, it's a humongous ball of light. I mean, this thing is. Then I thought, oh well, you know what it is? Is we have what's called AMOC. We have, it's called the Air Marine Operations Center. So we have Black Hawks. We have a lot of different helicopters, military government style helicopters at our disposal if we see something.
Right.
So I use the 10 code for to go secure. So at the time we were still on an analog radio system.
So you made it safe. You got your and then
Yeah.
contact. Yep.
So we go encrypted. That I use the 10 code to go encrypted. I won't say it, because it's
No,
for
no, no.
sensitive. So I go encrypted because I started thinking, well, maybe it's a spotlight of a helicopter that's flying on
Certainly.
top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Even though seeing it, I mean, it started doing a square. Like the light would go like this, and then it would go back up, and then it would go like this, and it'd go back down, and it would go like this, go up. So I started thinking that it was maybe a helicopter, because you're just trying to figure out what's going on. Like
Mm.
I mean, I had never seen anything that big, and I'm thinking, well, maybe the helicopter landed, and they have like like a spotlight, and maybe it just looks funky. It just, again though, I'm not seeing anything. So when I would see this on my NVGs, I would lift up like that, and I'd go, well, I should be able to see at least a shadow of a profile against
You could
the
see
night
nothing.
sky. There was nothing. And the other thing too with the NVGs, I keep on saying NVGs, night vision goggles,
Yeah, yeah.
NVGs, is you can use I don't know if you ever used them, but you can use like an IR flashlight. You can actually get uh, uh an IR flashlight, a filter, and you could put it on a spotlight, which they do sometimes, and it's projecting all this light on your NVGs, kind of like the same like night security cameras, right? You see all this light, but you can't see it. It's not visible with the naked eye. So I start thinking, oh well, maybe it's a they have IR lights up there, or they're setting something up that I can't see it, right? I can't see it with my own eyes. It's just, because it's far away, and
Yeah.
maybe I just can't see it. The operator that's still next to me, because by the way, I'm standing in between my vehicle. So my vehicle's to my right hand side, he's to my left hand side, and he has the door open, and he's zooming in on it. Well, at the time we had these recorders, and whenever you saw something, you recorded it. You put it, and
Yeah.
you would put it to record. So he's recording. He starts recording all this, right? And I'm still watching this light. And I said, well, let's just call AMOC on secure, or we call it encrypted or unsecured, whatever, and just see if someone's up there. All right. So I get on there and I got to use my vehicle's radio because it's a lot stronger than my regular, my portable one.
Yeah.
So I start calling. I go encrypted, and when you go encrypted, anyone else on analog has no idea that you're calling, unless you're on a joint system. Like if you were at the station and you went encrypted, then all the radios that are in the office are going to
Yeah.
broadcast what you're saying. So you
Got
can
you.
tell that someone's, but if you're out in the field and you're going encrypted, nobody knows you're going encrypted at all. So I go encrypted, and it sounds horrible whenever when you're talking on encrypted, it's almost like, at the time, again, this was at the time, it changed, I'm sure by now, right? But at the time, it sounded like, it just sounded like a terrible recording when you spoke to somebody, and like there was static. So when
Yeah.
you would go out, it would be like, and then you would say what you're going to say. So I'm calling for AMOC, or Air and Marine Operations Center, and they were based probably about 100 miles, probably 110, 120 miles maybe. So they're fairly close for a helicopter. Well, out there in the same area, there's, I don't know if it's a private security company, but also has government contracts.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a training center for who knows what.
So what you're saying is they were closer.
Yes.
Right. Got you.
Okay. So you have Air and Marine Operations Center. So you have AMOC over here. You have this other training facility here, and then you have Fort Huachuca, which is in Arizona, which is an Air Force installation in the Arizona side, right? So you're almost triangulated with all these three options. So all I said was, when encrypted, start calling. They come back. They have to answer back to you encrypted, right? That's the only way you can start your broadcast, is they got to call you back, and you got to make sure that you guys both know that you're encrypted.
Okay.
So they call back, and again, people can now probably hear AMOC calling me, but they can't hear what I'm saying. But they kind of
Right.
know that maybe AMOC is talking to me. And
Yeah.
also too, your radios register. The old analog used to have green letters, and it would kind of say, you could kind of see it pop in if someone's kind of calling in. So they're going to know that someone's
They
calling.
knew there's something happening. There's something taking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I go, hey, this is, and I call my call sign. This is so and so. Um, do you have any are there any is there any activity on Animas Peak? And just the way they called me back, they were so surprised. They go, they gave me the call sign to repeat myself. And I go, yeah, is there any activity on Animas Peak? And they go, that's a negative. Do you have a visual on something? And I go, yeah, I got, and of course I'm speaking to you in lay terms, but this is all going on with our 10 codes and all this other stuff, right? So it's way more, you got to use this 10 code before you could,
So after you've established contact and explained what you're viewing, you and the guy at the side of you, what happens then, Eddie? Or am I rushing it?
No, 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 no. I said, well, I'm with the MSS unit, and I think we had a name for it. I don't remember. Well, I
No,
think we
no.
just called it the site. We called it the Anima site. So I'm like, I'm with the Anima site, and I have visual of something. I don't know what it is. It's a gigantic ball of light. I don't know if it's a spotlight. I can't tell what it is. And they go, well, what's its flight pattern? Because we had so many issues with air incursions that we had to follow. We had training on how to identify tail wing numbers, how many, if you see any occupants, how it's flying, is it fixed wing, is it external propulsion, you know what I mean? Like you have all these things that you're going to go through, right?
But this is out of your frame of reference.
I'm just seeing a ball of light,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
said, it just looks like a gigantic ball of light. They go, well, how big do you think it is? And I said, I think it's as big as a car. It looks like an A-star.
Mm.
What's it doing? And this is the other thing. Oh, I just got the chills again. So this ball, okay, so just imagine a gigantic ball of light again, like the New Year's Eve ball. It's emitting a light. So it itself is shining, but you don't see anything. You don't see anything else coming off of it. It's just one ball of light, but it shoots out a cone of light on the peak.
Right.
So, and there's pine trees, right? There's these gigantic ponderosa pine trees, and there was a fire back in the 90s. So you also have a lot of the dead gigantic pine trees that are still kind of up there, right?
Yeah.
You would see it fly, and the light is not affecting the pine trees.
I see. You're right.
So it almost looked at some points it almost looked like a cone with a ball at the top of it. It looks so weird. I mean, it looks so.
But it's not illuminating the tops of the trees or
Yeah,
anything.
it's only illuminating a spot on top of the mountain, and it's
Right.
following the curves of the mountain, and this light's only going at the bottom. And again, the operator comes out of the truck, and he's like, "Can I see can I see your NVGs?" And at this point, I tried to use the TAM, but they were so brand new that we didn't know how to turn them. So I think mine just had dead batteries, and I couldn't quite get it because he's using my NVGs and he's looking at it, and he's just he's saying some colorful words of what it could be, right?
Yeah.
And they go, "Do you have visual of it now?" And I'm like, "I'm looking right at it. What's it doing?" It's making squares. And it started doing this, and this is the part when it did this that I it felt like it knew we were watching it.
Yep.
So it's doing this, right? It's like, you know what I thought of? I thought when I saw it, I thought, is someone training what it could do? I thought someone was. It just reminded me of someone like, "Hey, do you want to try? Hey, try doing this pattern." And it almost felt like that. But when we really started paying attention to it, and I'm calling it in, it just I can't even explain it, but it felt like it knew we were watching it.
And did that make you feel uneasy then, Eddie, or just in awe of what you were looking at?
Both.
Both.
It it felt it felt more like you knew you weren't supposed to be seeing that. Like it almost felt like it went, wait, they could see us. It starts doing like the letter L.
Okay.
Like it just keeps on going like this. And they go, what's it? And they're saying, the whole time, and I'm telling you, at the time when you spoke encrypted, it sounded off. It was very difficult, even on a clear line, which we had, because I'm also up. Animas Peak, of course, is way higher, but I'm also up on a hill. I'm on
Yeah.
top of a hill. Talk, seeing what I'm saying, so they can hear me. And they're like, "What's it doing?" I'm like, "It's going up in the air, straight up really fast, and then it goes down, and then it goes to the left, it's making like a backwards L, and it just keeps on doing that. And I remember hearing the operator like, stand by. That's all they said was stand by. They would just say, are you maintaining visual? At 10-4, still maintaining visual. Whenever we kind of noticed it, that it not noticed, but whenever we felt like it noticed us,
Yeah.
it did this thing that was so creepy, but it looked, again, I'm a visual guy, right? Like I'm thinking of these weird things. It looked, like when a teardrop, or not a teardrop, but like a water drop is like slowly kind of following the contours and kind of going
Yeah.
down. It kind of comes towards us, and even though it's a ball of light, that it's facing you. You know that it's coming towards you, and it starts coming towards us, and it starts like kind of following the contours of the mountain, and
Yeah. You got you.
it slowly almost looks like it was pouring. Like it just looked like a water droplet just slowly kind of going down a hill. And it
And
comes
what did the guy at the side of you think? Well, this is happening then, Eddie. Is he got the same mindset as you that you
so
both think?
he's going back in and out of the truck.
Right.
So he goes in the truck, and he goes, "Holy, you know what?
Mm.
I have it on camera. I'm recording it. We're recording it." Which we were supposed to, right? You're supposed to record it. And he's just like, he was just more like, "What is that? Like what the?"
Yeah.
And from what I remember from that guy, I think he ended up quitting, or he got fired for something unrelated. But I mean, just to kind of maybe show you he wasn't really maybe the brightest bulb, right?
Okay.
But for me, I'm in my 20s, early 20s. I'm gung ho. I'm in the best shape of my life. I mean, I'm a go getter. So seeing this, it was just I'm not thinking alien at all. Like I'm not thinking that I'm just thinking like, what the heck is this thing? I kept on thinking it was a helicopter. I kept on telling myself, this is a helicopter. Like there's crazy trees. Like how is it? I had hiked up there. I had just been up there, I think 2 weeks prior. And I knew what the terrain was like. And I'm thinking, there's all these trees. Like the helicopter's going to hit a tree. And what's it doing? It's flying towards us. It goes back to the top. Uh, you still have visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give us any updates. I said it's back on the peak. It's just staying still. That was when it just really, really, really. It scared me. It was just very, very, very scary. And again, I'm at the point in my life where I'm not afraid of anything at this point, right? I'm 20, thinking I'm invincible and all this other stuff. The light stays like this. I mean, I know you guys are gonna be blurring me, so I'll see if I could do it. It goes like this, but then it has like it makes hard like hard edges.
Right.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah,
Like
protrusion you can see coming
yeah,
through it.
there you
Yeah.
go. It almost looked like like just something like it was coming off like this, like these rounded spikes were coming off of it like all over.
Right.
And it just made this like really hard. And again, looking at their NVGs have what's called like kind of light wash. So sometimes you're seeing stuff, and you're never going to get a clear picture of what you're seeing. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
You kind
Some
of
of them
always,
just blow it out a bit, don't they? And
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
But I could see that it was so clear that I could make out like the edges of it. I could clearly see the protrusions, and it didn't look like they were giving off light. It looked like it was filling up my NV, like my field of sight. Like it filled it up with this light, but you could see these super you know, almost like an asterisk, but like
Yeah.
more. And it just goes, and it was gone. It just went straight up, gone. And the guy goes, he's trying to follow. He goes, "Is it gone? Do you see it?" I said, "It's gone." And I went, as I'm saying this, I go to get my radio. They go, "Do you still have you still have visual of it? You still have contact?" At this point, I'm looking, and the guy next to me goes, "Hey, there's Blackhawks coming." So they had, without telling us, they had sent Blackhawks, um, which they have a thing where they can go without having like the, what do you call it, like the lights on, the indicator lights. So
Yeah,
so
I
they're
see.
dark.
Yeah,
So they're darked out completely. I don't see. I have, until I have my NVGs and I could then see them.
yeah.
And there's two of them.
Could you hear them though? Are we too far away?
No, no, so right whenever I realized this thing went up, you could slowly hear the,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
the
Got you.
the wall or
Which is
whatever.
fascinating because this sphere of light, Eddie, is totally silent. There's nothing coming from that yet.
Oh, so,
Yeah,
like,
but when the helicopters started to get within range, you could hear them. So that obviously I'm with you on board with what you're saying, but for anybody who's not, it's totally ruled out anything to do with an helicopter. What you were looking at originally, your description of it rules that out anyway. But the helicopters come into frame, the object goes, and you can hear the helicopters.
not only that. So you have to remember, we're dealing with three separate entities that have access to helicopters and planes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we get two Blackhawks, then we get, I don't know if they flew a jet or what, then we get fixed wings, is what we called them,
Yeah.
coming from Fort Huachuca. Then the private, or whatever that
Yeah.
place is. My dad worked there, by the way, and he never knew exactly what he was doing. He did security there for a little bit,
Yeah.
and he never quite knew exactly what they were.
But you've
And he's
got
never,
we'll call it three different departments,
yes,
and they've all sent
they've all
something
sent,
out.
they all scrambled. They, it was, it was weird. So I know one of the jets saw something, or I'm sorry, not one of the jets, one of the first, like the helicopter in the front. It saw something because I remember whenever it went up in the air, it crested, and then I could see it kind of, whenever I could see it now in my field of view, it's it's now looking, it kind of
It's,
flies higher, right? It
yeah,
goes
yeah,
a lot higher. The other one goes down to the side of the mountain we were at, and it's like, because I'd explained, like, it's kind of coming towards us, and it's, I don't know exactly what it's doing. So they're like, "Well, where did it go?" And I said, "It just, I mean, before you guys showed up, I mean, I don't know, you guys didn't see it. It shot up straight in the air."
mm,
"Are you sure?" I said, I'm absolutely positive it shot up straight in the air." Now, right? So now I'm using NVGs. I can now see that they're using IR spotlights on everything, because now they're trying to see, maybe this, again, I don't think they were thinking that it was something alien either. I think they
no,
were thinking that it was, man-made, and why the heck was this person up here? Did they drop something? But to see them, right? And these are Blackhawks. These
mm,
are, I mean, they're stable helicopters. They're meant to go through stuff. They're meant to, they're tough.
yeah,
You could clearly see like an absolute distinction with the wash of the terrain, how it affects the propulsion. The
yeah,
helicopter doesn't just fly smooth. It's like kind of, it kind of has
yeah.
to cant a little bit to move. Even if it's going to do one of these. and it just did not look at all like this light did.
No. To be honest, Ed, I think the description that you've given us from the very start, you know, we'd have to be living on a different planet to believe that that were an helicopter. It definitely, to my mind, is were nothing to do with an helicopter or nothing resembling it. But you've painted an absolutely amazing picture. So, is that the end of the object after it's disappeared into the upper atmosphere?
That's the end of the object, but not of the not of the aftermath. Uh, so they send stuff from Fort Huachuca. So they're everyone now at this point. The mountain is lit up with different helos, right? I mean, it's lit up. So my guess now that I kind of, again, I was new at this time. I didn't know exactly how the deals were. I think what happened, well, actually, I know what happened is they then contacted the station to see who I was, and they could see my call sign was newer.
Yeah.
So they knew obviously that I was a new guy. All of a sudden, a supervisor gets on, and for him to get on direct, which is what they call it direct, that means that they're close enough to you where only you and people within a certain radius can hear, and it's not being broadcast out. And
Okay.
he's getting me on direct encrypted. He's like, stay there, stay there. 10-4, I'll wait. Supervisor comes up, and we're waiting, and there's helicopters, they're doing flyovers. I'm guessing it was the jets from Fort Huachuca. I never got confirmation, because again, they deployed and they said, did you see it? And then they stopped talking to me. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
There was no helicopter pilots didn't call me. There was no more communication until my supervisor gets on and says, gives me the 10 code for wait your butt. And then he gives me the 10 code for you're going to report to me.
I see.
So now, me being you, you could just imagine how scared I was. And again, at this point, I'm not thinking alien. It was just so strange that I'm still trying to process. Like, the part that freaked me out was when it was like pouring towards us, and it was kind of coming towards us after it did like the L's. Supervisor comes up, and again, this is 2009. At the time, I didn't have a smartphone. Smartphones were kind of a thing, but not really, at this
Yeah.
time frame. So I still had like a slide, and the guy next to me had a flip with the camera. And he goes, "Hey, what's going on, fellas? Hey, what's going on, sir?" He's like, "Who called the light?" And I was like, "Well, it was me." And then he's like, "Did you get it on video?" This is the supervisor talking to myself and the other guy.
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, 10-4, I got it." He's like, "Okay, uh, you're gonna have to break it down and move the truck." Like, okay, that's all right. That's a big undertaking, because you have like a camouflage tarp, and you have to have like a generator because the battery dies and all this other stuff, right? It's a pain in the butt to move these trucks. You got to break it down.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, 10-4. He's like, and then meet with me. He's like, he didn't know, this supervisor didn't know me because I was new. I was a brand new guy. He had seen me around. He goes, did you take trophy shots? And I was like,
On your
trophy
phone.
shots? Yeah. I was like, no, sir. He's like, let me see your phone. Okay. And I pull it out and I open it up. And again, I don't have internet on my phone. This is 2009. I don't have a smartphone. I could just text and call and take
Yeah.
photos, right? 10-second video clips, which is, I know it's hard to believe for people, but that's how it used to be. And he's like, open it up and go, go in your gallery. All right. Yes, sir. Open it up and I show him, no photos. I still have that phone, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's like, go to your text message. And at the time, again, cell service was so sparse at this point that even if I would have tried, I couldn't have called anybody. I mean, they used to have to give us sat phones if we were going to be certain areas, we would have satellite phones. And then
But they
even
were
then,
very concerned that you had, basically.
they said, "Did you call anybody?" "No, sir." "Who have you told about this?" "Nobody." He goes, "Okay, follow me." He's like, "We're gonna come back into the station now." And I'm like, what the heck did I do? Like, what did I do? So we drive off. The guy's breaking it down, and then he stops a little bit down the ways, and he goes, he pulls me to the side, and he just goes, "Hey, leave your phone in your truck." "Okay." And we walk over. He's like, because you can unclip your radio.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Leave your radio in the truck." Pulls me off to the side of the road, and he gets really close to me, and he goes, "Don't, F
Yeah.
word, don't fin say a thing to anyone about this. Don't tell any of your friends. Don't tell any of your coworkers. Don't tell anybody. I don't know what you saw, but they sent me out here immediately." He's like, "And they're bringing the truck in because of whatever you guys saw." And he goes, "I guarantee you they're going to want those tapes if he recorded it." "Did he record it?" And I said, "Yes, he did." I said, he told me he did, but I didn't see, I don't, so I would have no indication if he recorded it, but I just remember him saying it.
Yeah.
He was, I think what started freaking me out was he was scared.
Yeah.
The supervisor was scared. He was a new supervisor from another station, so he was pretty new. And he said, he's like, they called and they're already sending people to come talk to me since I'm your supervisor. He's like, "But I don't think they're going to talk to you." He's like, "Don't effing tell a soul about this.
And so it
For
had really stirred up a hornet's nest then, this one.
for the sake of your job and your career, don't say shit." Don't say sh. I said, "No, sir. No, sir." He's like, "You didn't send you didn't take any photos." I said, "No, sir." "You don't have any other phones?" "No, sir." "You don't have a disposable?" Again, this was still when disposable cameras and the digital cameras were still a thing. I said, I don't have any of that." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "I don't know what you saw, man." He's like, "But just," he's like, "I'm worried that they can hear us." Okay. So we go back to the trucks. We go back. I turn in my keys. Don't make a mention of it to anybody. And it was already kind of towards the end of my shift. And he just goes, he's like, just hang out and call it a day. And he then had told me to get back to the station and just to hang out. Don't worry about anything. Just hang out and leave when my time's done. Don't talk to anybody. Don't tell anybody what happened. Don't bring anything up. Nobody had heard any radio traffic. They had kind of heard some radio traffic, but they said don't, that it was going to be, just to tell them that it was AMOC.
Right.
Okay, because now, of course, now that they're flying on the mountain, if anyone with NVGs, right? Because you can't see them. Again, there's no indicator lights. They're going lights off.
Right.
So I get to the station. We're done. Another supervisor had called, and I could hear on the radio at the station call to go have someone else help break down the MSS truck to move it. Again,
Okay.
because it's a pain in the butt. So they take down the MSS truck. Do you know, after that night, and I'm gonna guess it was in July, maybe even June. June, July, could have been August, early August, but more than likely June or July. I'm
This
guessing
is
kind of more towards July.
2009.
2009. Yes, 2009. That was the last time any of those surveillance units had recording capabilities.
Really?
That truck went to the main hub, and that entire recording apparatus was pulled from that truck. So now you had this big gaping hole of where the recording used to be. And all those tapes,
They're gone.
I never saw anyone else, but that supervisor treated me very like arm's length. He was always very, you know, around other people. He would just kind of overlook me and not really ever kind of talk to me. Like he actively ignored me. And then one day, probably 2 or 3 weeks out, I'm sorry, I think we had actually, since I was new, they put me in a different unit.
I see.
Now I'm in a new shift completely, and he's not my supervisor anymore. But we kind of overlapped, and I see him, and he one day grabs me and he pulls me, and then he's like, "Have you heard anything? Have you told anybody anything?" And I said, "No, no, I haven't told anybody anything, sir. Like I don't know what happened." And he goes, "I don't know what you did." He goes, "But it's just been," he's like, "it's just been freaky, man." He's like, "Don't ever," he's like, "don't tell anybody. You didn't talk to anybody?" And I said, "No." He's like, "Some guys came and talked to me from that. Remember that I told you that little, that little special training center?"
Yeah, you did. Yep.
Okay. He's like, "Some guys came from there to talk to me." He's like, "And they were asking about you." He's like, "Just don't text anybody, don't call anybody, and don't say anything about this with your phone." I said,
Very sensitive then at the time, wasn't it?
"Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah." It was and it was frustrating because whenever you kind of know that you kind of were involved in something, but you were just kind of like an ignorant witness.
Mm.
You're not really knowing, and I don't mean that like in a bad way, but you just don't know really what you saw, and then all of a sudden you kind of get put in a position where you have you start getting this paranoia because you're thinking, well, are they on my phone? Can they, I
And
can't.
they list-
And then if your phone starts acting kind of weird, and again, this is back in the day, so your phone would freeze a lot. You're thinking, well, what did they do something? So yeah, it was just a strange time. I didn't,
And have you formed any conclusions after all these years what it might have been, if it's possible to even offer an opinion?
I honest from all the years and just other stuff that we'll get into in another. I'm sorry, by the way, with the light because it's
No, it's
getting
okay.
overcast right now. Um, I feel like it was. I always felt like it was not from here. It was not. It was not man made. What I saw was not man made. I'm 100% will stake my life on that. I really felt like it was another being training another one. That's always the impression that I got. It was, hey, this is how we fly the craft. Now it's your turn. We're gonna go here and we're gonna take you through some training and do this. It just felt like they were doing like a little special routine, and then we just happened to see them, and they couldn't,
And when you felt that kind of knowing connection that
oof.
you know that the bit that's even today gives you those sort of goosebumps, those shivers. Have you ever felt like that since?
I just got them. What was that? I'm sorry. What was it?
It's
What was that?
okay. Have you ever felt like that since?
Yes, yes. I I feel it sounds silly, but it just feels like I got marked, and after that event, and I know we're short on time, but there was just other things that were just too coincidental that occurred after that. That
It doesn't. No, I don't think that's out of the way to say at all. Eddie. I'll be honest with you, and a lot of people who've kind of, had a glimpse of the phenomena. If that's not such a, I don't know, sweeping thing to say, tend to, your mind's been opened up to something that's truly amazing, and you felt like you were on its radar.
Oh yeah.
And who's to say that you weren't, and that connection's been made. We've spoken to people, Eddie, who've had strange experiences, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's almost as though its eyelids have flickered when somebody started talking about it again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
I know exactly. Yep.
I'm aware, we're aware. And that's not meant to sound daunting or anything, because I'm sure it's passed through your mind many, many times since 2009.
I would be driving. I would be driving and I would get the feeling that I was being watched, and I would specifically look at a point in the sky and I would see a really bright star, and it would just go whoop, and it would just zip off. I mean, that
So
happened to me probably after that incident. It happened 2 times that I remember clearly. I mean, and those aren't really fantastical. I mean, that's
yeah,
just, that was the encounter. I was driving and I just felt like something was watching me. I would get kind of, the chills, kind of freaked out, and I would look very specifically at a point in the sky, and that star would take off. I remember one time I was laying down on a trampoline, and I was on a date with a girl, and I laid back on the trampoline, and we're looking at the stars, and I said, she's like, "Wow, they just seem really bright." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Weird things happen with the stars. I'll like look at one, and then it'll just be like a shooting star." As I'm saying that, here goes the star, but it
it's
didn't
almost,
look like, you know what I mean? Like, I looked at that one specifically for a second, and it got a little bit brighter, and then it took off,
yeah,
and I was like, "Oh,
it's
like that."
absolutely. Do you know, that kind of thing is absolutely, it sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy as it first sounds. And I know we've nearly wound this up, and this has been an incredible account, but I just want to tell you something briefly that ties in with what you're saying. My eldest daughter, who's now 41, on the night before she was about to go into hospital to give birth to our eldest grandson, we went for a little run in car. She was married, she'd got her own home then. And we stopped at this location near Staxton. That means nothing to you guys, I realise, or anyone listening, unless you're local. And I said to Sarah, I said, "Well, this time tomorrow, Sarah," I said, you might have give birth, you might have your new baby. And as we're looking, there's 2 really bright stars that we both focus on, because we can't, kind of like a dumbbell, round dumbbell, but no bar in between. And when you get that, they're big stars. Which ones? And they just literally just switched off. And that felt like it were for us. So when you say something like that, I can kind of relate to what you're saying, and I'm sure other people will. So all I can say from myself and Les, for sharing this incredible account with us and the people who listen to Truth Proof, is thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm
Yeah, no,
honored. Thank you so much for just listening to me and giving people just a place where they can actually share stuff like this. I haven't shared. I mean, I've shared this story maybe 3 times. You know what I mean?
really.
Yeah. I've and even when I've shared it with people that I'm close with, I feel silly telling it. It's strange. I just feel like, just maybe it was just the helicopter. It's just think it feels good to tell somebody.
Well, Eddie, we appreciate it. So all I will say for myself and Les is thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to you very soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.